All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to that. We don't need that on the screen. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Exploring Genealogy at the Indiana State Library, part of our Lunch and Learn series here at the State Library. This is our first Lunch and Learn of the year, but we will be having more throughout the rest of the year. We have information on those at the table in the back if you're interested. So I'm Jamie Dunn. I'm the Genealogy Division Supervisor. I've been here with the library for 11 years, all of them in genealogy. And I'm just going to tell you about what we have here for genealogists, both in person and through our online resources. So, go. All right. The Indiana State Library was established in 1825, so we are 200 years old this year, which we haven't always been in this location. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. The first state library was located in the State House right over there. And we were located there from it shortly after 1825. Our very first location was actually on Monument Circle. When Indianapolis was platted, the governor's mansion was located on the circle where the monument is now. The governor's wife said she would not hang her laundry where everyone in the city could see it. And so no governor ever lived in that house. It was converted to state offices. So the Indiana State Library, as well as most state offices, were located there until the first state house was built. And so then we moved temporary quarters in a rented office space when the second state house, our current one, was built. And we were there until 1934 when we moved to this building, located at the corner of Ohio Street and Senate Avenue. And our collections had outgrown the allotted space in the state library space in the State House. We actually had stuff stashed everywhere and were annoying other people. And so they said, fine, we'll give you your own building because we're tired of looking at your stuff. So librarians, we keep everything. And so this building was built purposefully for us. The exterior is Indiana limestone, and they really tried as much as possible to use Indiana materials. They had an Indiana architecture firm design the building for us, and they just used Indiana materials as much as possible. The architectural style is Art Deco and neoclassical. Neoclassical is a traditional government building style. A lot of the buildings in Washington, D.C., the State House are built in that style. But then the Art Deco aspects really reflect the design sensibilities of the 1930s. So it's a nice mix of historic, traditional, and modern, contemporary for the time design. The interior is also Indiana sandstone. All of the woodwork you see in here, in all the other rooms in the historic part of the building, were made of black walnut from Indiana. And most of the paneling in most of the rooms, the veneer came from one tree. Some of the furnishings and the bookcases and things were other trees, but the big panels all came from one tree, according to the building records that I looked at in my research, which is absolutely fascinating to me. It must have been a really big tree. And so we also have stained glass windows and murals. You can see one of them at the back of the room here. The stained glass windows are in the Great Hall where you came in, and they depict scenes from Indiana history, Indiana culture, and the history of literature and historical communication in the world. And so those are really neat. I recommend looking at them on your way out if you didn't on your way in. Here at the library, we have 3 service divisions. I really enjoy this picture of our building from 1984 because that has Volkswagen Beetle in it. It's a really cool picture. The building hasn't changed much over the years. We've mostly left it the way it is. So we have three service divisions here at the library: statewide services, which does a lot of work with public libraries around the state, assisting them and helping their patrons and things like that. Public services, which genealogy is a part of, and I'm going to talk the most about today. We are the Genealogy Division, the Indiana Division, the Reference and Government Services Division, as well as a couple of our service divisions like cataloging and circulation. And we help the public with their research. We help people find the books and materials that they need for anything they're researching relating to Indiana or even things outside of Indiana. We have a wide variety of resources we've collected over the years. And then our third service division is the Indiana Historical Bureau. They manage the historical markers all around the state. You've probably seen them when you're out and about. And they also house our digital initiatives department, which manages some of our digital collections that I'll talk about later. So with that said, we'll go on to genealogy. I'm going to talk about the different departments in the library that have genealogy materials. Depending on what you're researching, not everything you want is going to just be in the genealogy division. There are materials in the library that are useful for genealogy in every department. And we'll look at our print resources, our microform resources, and our digital resources. So we're going to cover a lot of different things. The Genealogy Division is located on the first floor of the library. It's just inside the Ohio Street lobby. We have over 50,000 books and pamphlets in the Genealogy Division. Most of them are available in the reading room, and it's self-service, so you can just go in and find the books you want. We have a map of the reading room downstairs that's available for people. It's also on our website, or you can always ask the librarian at the reference desk for assistance with whatever topic you're researching. I recommend searching our online catalog simply because some of our older materials and more fragile materials are kept behind the scenes. And we're more than happy to bring them out for people to look at them. But just because of their age, we keep them in the closed stacks, which stacks is just a word that librarians use for bookshelves. Not really sure why, maybe because you stack them. But so yeah, we're more than happy to bring stuff out for you. We just don't have everything in the library publicly available on the shelves. That's especially true of our Indiana and Reference and Government Services division. So our genealogy collection focuses on Indiana and the Midwest, but we collect a little bit of everything. We have something for all 50 states. We have things pertaining to other countries, particularly countries where a large number of Hoosiers came from before they arrived in Indiana. We have family histories, and we collect family histories from all over. It's largely things that people have written over the years, and either we've purchased or they've donated their book that they wrote about their family. And the collection is primarily organized geographically by U.S. state. Um, and the family histories are alphabetical by last name. And then we also have some collections pertaining to military resources and various lineage societies: Daughters of the American Revolution, the Mayflower Society, Colonial Dames, Sons of the American Revolution, different societies you can join if someone in your ancestry meets the criteria for those organizations. And so we have a lot of their publications as well. And we're continually adding new items to the collection. As new books are published, we purchase them. As people write books, they donate them. So we're always adding more, which is really great. It's kind of a little bit harder to grow a genealogy collection. Not as many people write genealogy books as, like, say, novels. They're always publishing new novels. So we really love that people are still writing genealogy and not just putting everything online. The books, there's more guaranteed access to books because we can preserve them in our collection. And so we provide access to just a wide variety of sources that way. This is a picture of our reading room. You're more than welcome after the presentation to go downstairs and wander around if you want. As I said, we have family histories, we have ethnic and religious resources, Resources for everywhere, genealogy manuscripts as well. A lot of people, when they have finished with their genealogy research, they've donated their papers to us. And we have those in manuscript collections, which, since they're loose papers, they're kept in boxes, in folders, and the folders are organized by topic usually. And so those are people's actual research notes, usually handwritten, family photographs, original documents, the kinds of things you might not find in a published book because it's various loose bits of paper and marriage certificates and people's wedding photos and things like that. So that collection is highly varied, and I'll show you how to search those later in the presentation. The next department that holds a wide variety of genealogy materials is the Indiana Division, which is located on the second floor of the library, right out here behind this room. And their collection covers all aspects of Indiana history, literature, government, and culture. And so a lot of these materials are going to be useful for genealogy because that's where our biographies are housed of Hoosiers, both famous and less famous, but someone wrote about them. That's where our county histories are. And the county histories are really great. They often include biographical sketches of the people who lived in the county at the time the book was written, and they wrote about everybody, not just the famous people or the rich people. So you can learn a lot about your ancestors through those. The Indiana Division houses our newspaper collection. Oh, I talked about it on the next page. It's the largest Indiana newspaper collection in the world. We've digitized quite a few items, but the bulk of it is on microfilm. And so it is organized by city because newspapers typically are published in a specific city, like the Indianapolis Star. And so if you know where your ancestor lived, or if they lived very rural, the town they lived nearest to, you can see if we have newspapers about that area and see if there's information on your family in those. And the newspapers are really great for genealogy research, especially because, especially smaller town newspapers, they talk about the doings of the people, and so you'll find out what your ancestor got for wedding presents and who gave them what, and who brought the potato salad to the church picnic, and just really random but interesting stuff that shows you so much about your ancestors that makes them more like a real person. If you look at things like the censuses, you're just going to get a snapshot in time and it's all very official. You're going to get a name and a job and just a few things. And so finding out like what clubs they were in and what kind of food they made and things like that in the newspapers just really helps humanize these people in a different way than you're going to get from like the official government records. So they're really fun to look at. And you'll also never know what you find because a lot of the court records end up being summarized in the newspapers. So if somebody's suing somebody or out there committing crimes, you'll find out about it, which is always interesting. We always love a good drama in genealogy. So that's really like a huge part of our Indiana collection that's great for genealogy. But we also have a large map collection, which includes the county plat maps, the little maps that show, well, they're big maps, but they show the little outlines of everyone's property and who owns what. And so those are really useful for research in between censuses, really useful if you want to know where your ancestor lived. And it is from an era when there weren't street addresses in the middle of nowhere. Maybe they didn't even live on a street. They lived down a dirt road that like they owned themselves. So having those plat maps shows you who owned what property. You find all sorts of interesting stuff. At least in Indiana, there were a surprising number of female landowners in the 1800s. And you find that out because you just see all their names on the map and you've got, Mary and Jane and Susan. And you're like, okay, this is really fascinating. So just all these sorts of historical things that you not necessarily find out anywhere else, they're on the maps. I talked about county histories. We also have state government documents in the Indiana Division, and state documents are different things that were published mostly by state agencies over the years. Some of them contain direct genealogy information about people. A lot of them don't, but they're useful for historical context. For example, we've used the Indiana State Department of Health bulletins to research disease outbreaks in Indiana at various points in time, because if there was a major disease outbreak, the health department was talking about it. And so then you can see, if you're researching a family and you find that a whole bunch of them passed away at once, you can say, oh, well, perhaps it was because they were having this disease outbreak. Especially some of the bulletins predate death certificates, or predate when death certificates were mandatory. Fun fact about vital records in Indiana, we had no birth or death certificates until 1882, and they were optional until 1907. And if someone's born, they can't choose to opt into their own birth certificate. And if someone's passed away, obviously they're not making any choices. So people were dependent on what their family did as to whether records were created about them. And even until after 1907, the State Department of Health estimates that there wasn't full compliance with the vital records laws until the 1920s. So that always makes research really interesting, and is why things like newspapers are really helpful for research, to give you something that you're not going to find in the official record. So we have, as I mentioned, like the newspapers, so many records on microfilm and microfiche. Microfilm is literal reels of film, and you use a machine that works like a camera to read it. Microfiche is books printed in teeny tiny print on, if anybody remembers overhead projectors, it's the overhead projector transparencies, and they print the books in teeny tiny print, and you use our machines to blow it back up so you can read it. And we have some modern microfilm machines. They've gone through a lot of iterations over the years. The nice thing with the ones we have is you can save what you're looking at to a flash drive and have a digital image to take home with you, print it at home. You can print it here. We charge 25 cents a page for printing, but saving to digital is free, which is always nice. And then down in genealogy, we actually have a book scanner. So if you're looking at something in our books and you want to make a copy of it, you can scan it to a flash drive for free. For genealogy materials, we also let you take a picture with your phone if you want. And we have a photocopier, but that does cost a little bit. So I always recommend the free options to people. But on microfilm, we have newspapers, as I mentioned. We have Indiana County records, which are some births and deaths, mostly marriages, wills and probates, deeds, things like that. A lot of these have been digitized by Family Search, which I'm going to talk about in our digital side. Some of them you can get at home, some of them you can't. But we have them on microfilm as well. We have a ton of genealogy and local history books on microfiche. A lot of them have now been digitized because they're out of copyright, but there's some that are not digital. And then we have a fair number of Indiana church records on microfilm, particularly pertaining to the Catholic, Lutheran, and Methodist churches, but also a few others as well. And those range across the state. And they're typically copies of the church burial records, baptismal records, and marriage records. Occasionally confirmation as well, depending on each individual church's practices. So those are really handy research. Religious records in general predate civil records in most places. So if you know what the religious affiliation of your ancestor was, that's a good way to find information on them that's not going to be in government records. And that's true for US research or European research. Next is our rare books and manuscripts department. They collect a wide variety of materials, including letters, photographs, business records, things like that, pertaining to both important Hoosier families and, once again, just the average person. And so this is not strictly genealogy oriented for the most part in these materials. But if your ancestor owned a business, we might have records about it. If they worked for a company, we may have records about it. Not necessarily your ancestor's employment, but just a broader perspective on, what was it like working for this company potentially? Or we might have documents pertaining to something your ancestor was involved in, a historical event that doesn't name your ancestor, but just provides some context of what they would have seen or experienced. And so I'm going to show you the catalog for that in a little bit, but it's just a really highly varied collection. I think there's over 3 million individual documents in our rare books and manuscripts collection, so huge collection. And so now I'm going to switch over and show you some things about the digital side of our website. That's a brief overview of what we have here in person, and then we'll take questions at the end. So let me switch those. Hey. So this is our website, www.in.gov/library. And we have a wide variety of resources available here. I'm going to start with our online catalog. So this is our online catalog. It's right here on the catalog tab. And you can search for whatever you're researching in our catalog. I'm going to go with Smith family, which is always risky. There's a lot of Smiths, but this is, you're going to get our catalog. I recommend if you're searching for a family name, you put the surname and then the word family, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of books in our collection written by someone with that last name, and it may not be genealogy. It may be from our Indiana authors collection or something. So as you can see, we have quite a few books on the Smith family. The Smiths, there's a lot of them, but this is going to tell you about the book. You can click on the record to get more information. And then you can click here to get even more details. And so it's going to tell you, the title of the book, the author of the book, just like any library catalog. And then down here at the call number, it's going to tell you what department the book is in. So like ISLG is genealogy, and you can see the shelving location is genealogy reading room. So that's going to tell you, if you're visiting the library, which department you need to go to find this book. Or you can just come in and we can direct you. Either one's fine. So going back. Have our rare books and manuscripts catalog on our website as well. Search for Smith. And this includes both genealogy manuscripts and rare books and manuscripts collections. So you can find, for example, we have the Smith family collection, which is in rare books and manuscripts, and it contains things like a marriage certificate, a handwritten will, some death certificates, Bible records from the family. And so any item that you click on in there is going to give you a summary of the contents. It's not going to tell you every last item that's in every last folder, just because some of our collections have 50 boxes, 70 boxes. That would be a lot of information, but it's going to give you a summary. So if you wanted to look at the collection, you would have an idea of what you wanted to look at. So let me see if I can find a large collection in here. Nope, only small ones, but yeah, it's going to provide you a summary of what you're looking at. The next one is this is Indiana Legacy. There's a link to it on our website. Let me show you. On our homepage, we have, if you scroll down, we have these buttons here, and those take you to a lot of our digital collections, including Indiana Legacy, which is right here. I have most of these bookmarked, so I just start typing and they come up. But Indiana Legacy is a collection of indexes that mostly we've produced. Some of them have been produced by other organizations. We've recently partnered with the Porter County Clerk's Office Archives from Porter County up in northern Indiana. And so far, we've got one of their databases imported. We're going to be doing the rest soon. And so they had indexes that they couldn't post publicly because they didn't have the capacity on their website for that. We have the platform already, so we're working with them. But it's a wide variety of items. We have our Indiana Biography Index, which contains books and periodicals from our collections that our staff has indexed to tell you if there's an article about anyone that you'd be searching for. Famous people, non-famous people. We've looked at trade publications. We've looked at religious publications. As long as it's published in Indiana, we've tried to index. We're still working on it. The index started in, I think, the 1950s or 60s, and we're still indexing today. Mostly because there's still things being published today. So you can search that for a full person's name, just a last name, and see what's in there. And then it will tell you where you can find that publication so you can come here and look at it. Some of the others we have Indiana marriages 1958 to 2022. And in the genealogy division, we don't just do genealogy of, your great, 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 great grandfather. We've done a lot of work lately. I'm sure you've seen things in the news because the deadline just passed for real ID, your driver's license with the star on it. And you have to document every name change you've ever had in your life. And so we do a lot of work to help people track down where their documents are if they don't remember or they're not sure. We can't provide certified or official copies of records. We're not authorized to do that, but we can figure out which county you need to talk to, or which, if you just need to talk to the State Department of Health, or who you need to talk to, where that record is. We've done a lot of that work lately, and it's really interesting work, figuring out how to find these records when they're not always well indexed and not always very publicly available because of privacy reasons. So we're just working off of indexes. So that's really fun. We have an index to Indiana marriages through 1850, which started its life as a card file on literal index cards. In the 1940s, we still have the original card file in storage, but it's online now and keyword searchable, which is way more fun. Um, we love being able to search for things instead of having to actually read page by page. But that just indexes marriages all throughout Indiana before 1850. In the 1850s, Indiana's population really took off, and we had to stop indexing because there were just too many marriages. Something I really want to talk about in legacy is our Indiana newspaper microfilm holdings. This will tell you all the newspapers we have in our collection on microfilm. It's not digital access to them, but this is where the index lives. So if we search for, say, Indianapolis, you can also search for a newspaper keyword. Like if you were looking for a paper called The Times, you could search for the word Times. You're going to get a lot of hits because there's a lot of them. But these are newspapers that were published in Indianapolis. So you're going to get the name of the paper, the city where it's published, the county, because you can also search by county as well if you want to know all the newspapers for a certain county. It's going to tell you the earliest issue we have and the most recent issue we have. And then if you click on it, there's a notes section. This one, so it tells you the specifics, and if we're missing any issues, it will tell you that as well in there. And so if you want to know if we have a newspaper that's relevant to your research, you can do that to figure out if we have it. And then you can come here and do the research. A lot of our microfilm newspapers, as long as we have the ability to make duplicate copies, we will interlibrary loan them to your public library. Your public library can set that up for you, and your public library would need to have microfilm readers at their building. Not all of them do, but that's another option if you're not wanting to come down here for all your research. But we'd love to have you here. And so what else do we have on legacy? The other main thing I want to look at here is our high school and college yearbook collection. These are also largely not digitized, but we have a wide variety of high school and college yearbooks. So if you're looking for a photograph of someone in your family, that can be a useful thing to look at. And you can search by school name, you can search by county or city where the school was located, and that will tell you if we have yearbooks that might cover the relevant years for your research. Next thing we're going to look at is Hoosier State Chronicles. We'll go here from the button. Zoom interface is getting in the way of this, but here we are. This is a database we produce. They are newspapers from our collection that we have digitized, and this is on the internet, freely available for everyone. There's some other newspaper databases out there in the world, Newspaper Archive, newspaper.com. They're good databases, but they charge you a lot of money to subscribe to them. And this is one we've provided for free. It doesn't have every newspaper we have in it. It doesn't have every newspaper that's been digitized elsewhere, but it provides we've tried to select papers from across the state and also select papers that represent a lot of different perspectives and experiences. We have several German language newspapers in here. And so you can search, it's fully keyword searchable. So you can just search for a person's name and it will bring up any kind of articles about them. So obviously there's going to be a lot of articles about Benjamin Harrison. He was kind of famous, but this is 23,000 articles. You can click on them and it's going to give you the full paper. I'm on Wi-Fi, so it's going to take a minute to load. And you can zoom in so you can actually read it. And you can also, it'll take a minute to finish loading, but you can read the article, you can print the article, you can download it to your computer, and you can do all of this for free at home. It's really awesome. And a really cool feature is too, if you've ever looked at digitized newspapers, you know, sometimes the keywords are all gibberish because the computer can't read it. If you create an account for free with Hoosier State Chronicles, you can actually correct the typos yourself. So that's really fun. Not every place allows that, but it makes the research easier for everyone else when people work on that. This is our genealogy landing page on our website. And we have, if you click right here, we have Indiana County Research Guides. And we have a lot of different subject guides just to help you with your research, state censuses and alternative enumerations. You'll find references online a lot that Indiana had state censuses and it'll say the dates. And Indiana actually didn't have a lot of state censuses. The Constitution of 1851 intended us to have a state census every 7 years, but they never really did it. There's some early censuses that enumerate the white men over the age of 21 in certain counties and townships. And there's several territorial enumerations that just list the number of people in each county and township because they had to figure out if we had enough people to become a state yet. So you can get some information off of those, but not a huge amount. So this, let me scroll up. Yup. This guide provides information on, we've got enumerations of African Americans, enumerations of men, registered voters, soldiers, widows, orphans, pensioners, school enumerations, which enumerated all the school-aged children in a township to help them plan the budget for how much money they'd need to fund the school in a given year. And then other miscellaneous enumerations. And so they all link to things in our collection. And if they're online, the digital link is there. And those can be really helpful with your research, just looking for other things outside the traditional federal census every 10 years. We have a birth, marriage, and death index to the indexes, which lets you know where all you can find birth certificates, death certificates, and marriage records online, both free sources and paid subscription sources. And that helps with your research, knowing what's even out there. So you can try to find what you're looking for before you have to go buy something from the county offices. And then the main thing we have on here is the county research guides. We have one for each of Indiana's 92 counties. And every guide is laid out the same way. It's going to tell you a brief summary of print books that we have on that county. It's not a complete list for any of the counties. We just did selected resources. So a lot of the counties, we have way more. It's going to link to our county records on microfilm, our newspapers on microfilm, county histories, city directories, county maps. There's a section of online resources that links to free resources for that county, only free ones. So, and then there's contact information for the clerk of court and the health department, since those are two county offices that maintain a lot of records. And then there'll be a set of links for further research linking to genealogy societies in the county, libraries in the county that have a genealogy collection, just other places to research that might have things that we don't have. We've found a lot of times with genealogy, even though we try to collect as much as we can on Indiana, sometimes the local public libraries have things we don't, especially if they wrote them themselves. So if you're researching a specific place, it never hurts to contact the local public library there as well, just to see what they have. And they may not list everything they have on their website either. Go over to the Indiana collections. We have a wide variety of things here. You can see this is a summary of our map holdings. We have a huge number of maps for Indiana counties. They're organized by county, and so each county has a page. It's going to tell you the year the map was published. It's going to give you a description of the map. It's going to tell you what the call number in case you want to see the print copy here. There's also going to be a link if the map has been digitized either by us or another library has digitized their copy. There's going to be a link to that so you can see it online. Not every map has been digitized either in our collection or from other people's collections. And then on the Indiana division, we also have a link to our city directory guide. And that tells you every city directory we have for every county. And they're organized alphabetically by city and then by date order. We have a huge collection of city directories for Indiana, and city directories are like phone books, except they predate the telephone. So the more modern ones tell you everybody's phone numbers and address, the older ones, just the address, and a lot of times people's profession. They tend to list the head of the household, but then they'll also list the person's spouse's name. So typically they're going to be listing the man of the house and tell you his wife's name, although sometimes you will see that reversed, or you'll see a single woman or a widow. And so they're very useful if your ancestors lived in an urban environment. Our city directories go back to about 1850 something for Indianapolis. And then other cities start a little bit later, just because each city had to reach a certain size before the directory publishing companies felt the need to publish one. But those are really useful for research. The city directories from 1960 forward are all publicly available in our Indiana reading room right out here. The older copies are all available for research as well. We'll just have to pull them from the closed stacks for you. And so let me go back to talk about the So we're going to look at some this is our online resources page. These are the online resources we offer here in the library. The first set are subscription resources. You have to access them here in the library. And we have a lot of different ones. We have like Ancestry Library Edition, which is just like the ancestry.com you can get at home, but if you come here, you can use it for free. We have fire insurance maps online, which provides access to fire insurance maps from across Indiana towns. The fire insurance maps are really cool. They were produced by insurance companies to document what different buildings were built from. The material, wood versus stone, that influenced how much your insurance was going to cost. And now they're useful for genealogists because they tell you what was built in a specific place, and they're going to tell you um, they don't tell you who lived there, but they tell you a lot of businesses and a lot of how towns grew and changed over time. So those are really cool. We have Fold 3, which has a lot of military records, especially for the Revolutionary War, War of 1812, and Civil War. They're starting to add more recent wars. A lot of those, the records, especially World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. So many of the veterans are still living. They can't digitize their records just yet, but they've added a lot of really good information there. We have the newspaper databases I mentioned earlier. We have the complete run of the Indianapolis Star digitized from 1903 to today. literally today's issue is on there. We have Newspaper Archive and newspapers.com. Newspaper Archive, we have the Indiana only subscription. For newspapers.com, we have the worldwide subscription. It's mostly English language newspapers. There are a couple others. We've got some like Afghanistan newspapers in there, which is very interesting. And then the second section on this page is resources that we've provided to people online they can access from anywhere. And so that includes a lot of what I talked about in Indiana Legacy, our digital collections, Hoosier State Chronicles, things like that. And those you can access from home for free at any time. And I did want to mention, we also are a Family Search affiliate library. Family Search is kind of a unique situation. It's a free website. You just have to create an account. You can use it at home. But they have a lot of records that are only available at their research centers or at affiliate libraries. And for Indiana, that's especially true. There's a lot of records you can't get at home that you can come here and get them, though, or if your local public library is an affiliate. And what's really cool about Family Search is they've recently rolled out a feature where they're letting you search almost any record in the collection. They figured out how to have the computer read handwriting. This has been something that genealogy tech companies have been working on for a number of years, and the computers finally got to where they could do that technologically. We've been able to read typewritten text for years with a computer, but it's opened up a lot of research for people because records that weren't indexed before, you can just search them by name and find all this information that before you were reliant on typewritten indexes, or they weren't even indexed. You just had to go page by page and hope that you found the names you were looking for because you knew about what they were living. So that's a really cool feature. We've been able to find a lot of good information for people that way. And I highly recommend if you're doing genealogy, come in and look at it because they have so much for Indiana in there that you can't access at home. And it's so easy to search now. It's just really cool. And the last thing I want to talk about in what we have in our collection is, we'll go back to the homepage, our Ask the Librarian service. It's right here on this button, and you can submit a question and we'll talk to you through email if you use the submit your question button. We also offer live chat with the librarian during our business hours. We're open 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 to 4 the second Saturday of every month. Chat is open 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. We don't offer chat on Saturdays. But if you just have a quick question, you can totally just put it in there and talk with the librarian. It's really awesome. You can also call us on the phone or write us a paper letter. So we welcome anybody's questions. We love helping people with their research. We have a full staff of librarians that are really, really good at all aspects of Indiana research. So that is a brief introduction to genealogy at the State Library. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Yes. Family Search, www.familysearch.org. There's a link on our online resources as well. Yes. Real people. We don't use AI bots. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What year was she born? Okay. That's going to depend on the state. In all states, the counties are originally registered with the births are originally registered with the county. In some states, those records stay with the county permanently, like in Indiana. In others, they centralize them all at the state library, state archives, or state Department of Health. So I would start with the county health department in whatever county she was born in, and they can direct you from there. But most likely, if they don't have it, then their state library and archives or their state health department would have it. There were a couple states that didn't do birth certificates until 1920, but by 1910, most of them were doing them. I think South Carolina was the last one. They were like 1923 or something. Yes. 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 If you go into our catalog, the book catalog, it will pick up documents from the manuscript collection and also link out to the manuscript catalog. The advantage of the manuscript catalog directly is it gets you directly to those summaries. The folder by folder listing isn't going to be in the book catalog. So yeah, let me open up the chat real quick and see the question. I'm just going to read them. So, okay. All right. Anybody else? Yes. Mhm, 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 mhm. Okay. And the question is how we decide what to take with donations if people have their family history research. So we do ask to look at things before we accept them. If it's books, like published books, we'll typically ask for a list of titles. We're going to look at the condition of the materials. Generally, we do accept the bulk of people's research, as long as it is something unique to that family or brings something to our collection that we don't have already. But it does depend on the individual items. If there's a lot of original documents, we love having that. Yeah, yeah. And we're always glad to take donations. We just ask that people preferably let us know when they're coming in so we can schedule a time to look over the materials. But yeah, yes. Mhm. Okay, the question is looking at ancestry.com versus what we have here and the overlap there. So, like, we have Ancestry Library Edition here, which is identical to ancestry.com. The only difference is you can't make a tree in Library Edition and you can on .com because Library Edition is the same login for everybody, so that would get really awkward. But if you're here in person, you can get the same things. The advantage to something like ancestry.com is you can use it at home at 3 a.m. whenever you're doing your genealogy. Um, we don't offer for free at home the depth and breadth that Ancestry does, simply because they've spent decades curating this very expensive subscription. But a lot of the basic research on ancestry, like your U.S. censuses, your Indiana marriage records, things like that, are actually on Family Search and in the free part that you can access at home for free. So um, it really depends on what you're looking for specifically. Like Ancestry has a lot more for other states than we do. They have a lot more for other countries than we do, just because we're the Indiana State Library. Um, so a lot of times what I recommend is either come here or come to your public library. A lot of public libraries have Ancestry and the other subscription databases and test them out. And then you can decide whether you think it'd be worth it for you to just go to libraries to do your research or to pay for it at home. That way you can, judge for yourself what the usefulness is, because everybody's family came from different places. So it's hard to say for sure like what everyone's best research situation is. All right, I'm going to answer a couple questions from the chat real quick. Oh, okay, we have an ancestor who served as a police officer in Indianapolis. Are there registries for public official or government office holders? And there are. I don't know if there's a complete list of everyone who was a police officer in every city ever, but we do have a lot of government official registries as part of our Indiana used to publish in print. They still kind of publish them online, what they called county official yearbooks. And so we have those in our Indiana collection, and they're going to tell you like who the county sheriff is, who the county auditor is, who the county treasurer is, and a lot of those other positions in different counties. As far as specific employees of government agencies, especially the non-elected ones, we have a lot of information on them, especially if they were ever mentioned in the newspapers, but you might also contact the agency or institution that they worked for. Um, a lot of them keep their own records. I know IMPD particularly is large enough, they actually have an archive. I don't believe it's open to the public, but they do have an archivist. So that might be worth contacting for Indianapolis specifically, or contacting the police department of any of the other towns. I think that's all the questions in the chat. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Looks like nobody has any more questions. If you think of any questions later, feel free to contact us. All of our contact info for genealogy or any other department is on our website. So yeah, feel free to give us a call or email or whatever. We'd love to help you. Thank you for coming.